Can you tell me something about Al-Qaeda? What do you think about this organization?
Well, Al-Qaeda is a manufactured enemy, and it's made in the USA and to an extent made in Britain, the dynamic duo again. When you look at the history of it, the man currently behind Barack Obama, called Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was the national security advisor to Jimmy Carter in the late 70s. And a few years ago now, maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe a bit more, he was interviewed by a French news magazine about his involvement in enticing and encouraging the Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan, the occupation of something like 10 years. And what he admitted, he didn't seem to think it was a problem, was that before the invasion, Brzezinski and the Carter administration decided they wanted to give the Soviet Union what they called their Vietnam. So as part of this process of manipulating them in, the Kabul government in Afghanistan, like the government now of Mohammad Karzai, didn't control the entire country, but it was it answered to the Soviet Union. So Brzezinski admitted that what they then did was start to fund and train fighters, what they today would call terrorists, or some others would call freedom fighters, to resist and challenge the regime in Kabul. This, of course, had the effect, as they wanted, to get the Soviet Union to say, we must intervene here or our regime in Kabul is going to fall. So we had something like 10 years of that occupation in which 1 million Afghans died. And Brzezinski, again, didn't seem to think that was much of a problem because, hey, what was the problem? We gave major problems to our other superpower, so it was a good thing. This is how these people think. I'll tell you that 3 names that keep coming up in terms of manipulated wars around the world. Georgia recently was a classic example of this, and those names are the United States, the United Kingdom, and Israel. In Georgia, for instance, you had the so-called People's Revolution in Georgia, which was called the Rose Revolution because some of them held roses. That was funded by a man called George Soros, who is a close associate of Zbigniew Brzezinski, the man behind Barack Obama. And so it's not surprising to hear that George Soros is a major funder of Barack Obama's election campaign. And what happened is Soros, who's a notorious manipulator of global finance, funded the training of large numbers of Georgian students in civil disobedience, which were then employed to bring down the previous regime in Georgia. And one of the people that was kind of in the forefront of that disobedience was trained in law in America. I think he actually went to Brzezinski's university, Saakashvili, and he ended up, surprise, surprise, as president of Georgia. Now, they say there's 50 states in America. There's not. There's 51, and there are many, many 51st states. Saudi Arabia is a 51st state of the United States, etc., etc., and Georgia's one. And so right across the former Soviet Union, you've had people's revolutions. And I remember a BBC current affairs reporter who covered a lot of these people's revolutions and the outcome. I remember seeing him on a program once. He said how strange he found it, or what a coincidence he found it, that the people who started the revolution, from the people, it's a people's revolution, it's a spontaneous people's revolution, they were the ones that ended up in power at the end of it, you know. And the guy in Georgia is a classic example of that. And yet, when the Georgian Revolution happened, no one was saying the United States is behind this. It's people's revolution. So they use many front excuses to hide the fact that the manipulation is going on behind the scenes by the same people. And in this area of the world, with the Bosnian conflict and all that went with it, you had a powder keg because of the history and the desire of certain people and groups to be top dog over everyone else. Once you've got that, then all you need is a frontman leader to unite this sense of racial superiority or religious superiority or whatever on the target people, so that you become top dog because you believe that you should be. And this is so easy to manipulate, that mentality, that we don't know and don't understand, because we've been given a fake version of where we are and who we are. We can't fix it because we don't know what there is to fix, and we certainly don't therefore know how to fix it. And what's happened to me in the last particularly 4 or 5 years is information and experiences and various things have come towards me that have had a common theme, which is understanding reality. And the big penny, it wasn't a penny, it was a bank dropped when I realized that we live in the equivalent of a wireless internet, and that these scientific contradictions, well, contradictions to mainstream science anyway, that we have a solid world made of atoms when atoms have no solidity. How can that be? It's a mystery. Well, actually it's not, because atoms with no solidity can't make a solid world.